It's really great. I've had Lorna Rose Treen on, and I'm very excited to have some people, especially from behind the scenes from Saturday Night Live UK, because I think obviously all the people in front of the camera have sort of had their plaudits and everything. And I know you have done some bits in front of the camera as well. But it's been such a brilliant thing to happen, I think, and you're one of the writing team on that. Just how did it feel from your side when you went with that show?
I'm certainly one of the oldest writers on the team.
Yeah.
It's been brilliant. It's been absolutely crackers, and it's been a process that went on for like a year. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Of like submitting things and interviews, and I did a couple of like live auditions because I'm from the stand-up side of things. So
Yeah.
it's very surreal to be actually doing it. And I had to move to London, so I was away from my family for basically 3 months. And it was exactly like you think the job is going to be. You know, when you start doing it and you're like, what you imagine writing comedy for telly would feel like, and then you end up doing little bits and pieces of it. I've not done loads of it by any stretch, but when you do, it's mostly you remotely hunched over a laptop,
Yeah.
submitting stuff and sort of getting notes on, and it's all like that. Whereas there was a night, I remember it was like the Riz Ahmed week, and me and my friend Louis wrote a sketch which had George Fouracres covered in bird shit talking about this seagull that's coming to his house, and we had to like do a lot of tweaking on that between the dress rehearsal and it going on air. But I was also being an extra in the sketch, so I'm like storming around the set, grabbing people and being like, listen, we need to fix it. We need to change this from any ideas on it. You know, like you might as well be, I always think in your head, you're like smoking a cigarette, being like, hey, give me a topper for this. And I was dressed as a Victorian scholar. And you're like, that sort of experience, it's like so surreal, but it was magical as well.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy. Like I say, I am one of the oldest one. There's a few of us. There's like me and Humphrey Kerr,
Yes.
and a few others that are in the 40s. But I think from listening to all the podcasts about SNL, I think the overriding bit of advice I would say for people new is do try and be in your 20s, because you know, like they're staying up all night to write and stuff like this. You're like, I very quickly figured out that wasn't really on the cards for me. I push it. I will go until like 1:30 in the morning, but then I go to bed and I wake up at 5 a.m. and then do some work because it's just how it has to be.
Yes. Yeah. No, I can absolutely see that. I think when I got into my 40s, I think when I wrote for Time Gentlemen Please, I had to basically just work 24 hours a day. I don't know when I slept for that, but I was about 33 at that time, so that was just about doable. And I think by the time I was doing As It Occurs to Me, I was probably about your age, probably, and maybe a bit older. And it was just about doable to do sort of a kind of all nighter, but not quite.
But
So
it's
yes.
how it has to be. The opportunity wasn't there, and you know things. If it had been, I wouldn't have been ready for it. And
Yeah.
it's just how it's got to be. But it's it's been great. The hardest bit was being the probably it's not the physical thing. It's being I live up north. I've got a wife and a son, and the practical realities of that job is that when we get going on it properly, it's a 6-day a week job.
Yeah.
With the 7th day largely impacted by going to bed very late the night before. So I couldn't get home much once we started, and that was the
No.
hardest bit. Difficult, and it wasn't like I was living in London and I could go see an Amy or my other friends that live in London, or go enjoy culture and stuff that I don't get to see because I live away. It meant that I'm kind of just doing that job, and it meant that in the evening sometime I was very lonely. Yeah, but that was the only thing really. You know, that's quite a sad thing to think about. But you know, I was a 42-year-old lodger, and I was living with. Do you remember Scrap Heap Challenge?
Yeah.
I was living with the producers. This is just, I got them off a website, like,
Right.
as in I found Room for Rent, but they turned out to be they're not TV producers anymore, but they used to be, and they used to produce. And the lady whose house it was, she sort of said it very. She was like, "You probably don't remember, but there was this show called the Scrap Heap Challenge," and I said it was on Sundays on Channel 4 at 6:30 p.m. I remember it, and I said to her, "I said I'm so like." I said, it's a relief because it really does. It puts a lot of context as to all the pictures of Robert Llewellyn around the house. But I got to live with them. But I thought being a lodger was a bit of my life that was done.
Yeah. I mean, it's it does feel, the American version. I mean, the American SNL, certainly the early days, the first series of that, it feels it was very cocaine fueled. And there was a lot of egos to deal with, which probably makes it. I mean, I can't imagine it made it easier. Everyone being on cocaine. I mean, even if they were, you were not going to tell me. But I'm assuming that wasn't the case for the UK version.
I mean, I don't know what everybody's doing all of the time, but the landscape of working in comedy in 2026 is herbal tea, and like we are so up on our mental health. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you've had Lorna Rose train on. She's personally dragged me and picked me up, and because it's an intense job, but it's not. We think a lot of the systems, because we've inherited, like the structure as we work on it is the structure of the American one, like the way the week is laid out. We use the cue card system, like physical, or like it's analog and it's old fashioned.
Yeah.
But we think largely a lot of that might have been built around some of those habits in the 1970s.
Yes.
Whereas now it's herbal tea, and it's like being honest about your feelings so you can process them. But it's been really cool to be, like when you do comedy, you're like largely a mercenary to, I mean, when you work in a double act, like working in a double act was very good for me because we could split the anxiety and the the anxiety, but also the good, you had someone to share it with. But like when I'm on my own working on stuff, it's like it's very it's not lonely, but like you go to places and you do shows with people, but you are on your own looking after yourself. This is suddenly working with 20 people, which is very more because all the cast right as well. But like there's 20, 30 of us knocking around, and that's been brilliant in a way. Like, and there's just odd, like there's a comedian called Bella Hull who I don't know if you've had her on, but she's brilliant. She's like in her 20s. We just got on like a house on fire because I think she's like got a very dark sense of humour that just really tickled me. And we ended up writing a few things together. And my friend Nathan said, I don't know what's going on with you two, but this is sort of like, when a dog and a turtle become friends. It doesn't make any sense, but it just sort of works. And that's a really nice part of it, to suddenly have a load of new friends with a load of different perspectives. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I liked the fact, I watch Saturday Night Live, the US one, every week against my wishes. Really, my wife wants to watch every week, and the UK one had a much higher hit rate, and I think also just was much more. It felt like they let you take some chances and do some weird stuff that I think in the end feels. It feels like more of. My worry was, there's loads of writers. Obviously, before it came out, everyone was quite down on it, and my worry was, before we talked, you mentioned how much you think This Morning with Rich Not Judy is the greatest TV show ever. You're going on about it, but we basically did that. Me and Stu wrote that on our own, and we did a lot of it on the week, and you can spend ages doing something, and we did work hard on it. But it felt like that will work better because it's two people with a vision and we can get it done. Whereas my worry was like 25 people, they're all going to come from different angles and it'll be a mess. But it did, even though everything was, there was quite a lot of different styles of sketches, it did sort of coalesce somehow around that central thing. I feel like it really worked for me.
I think part of it is the inherent why I think it's appealing. The American one as well is like, I think we had Seth Meyers came over, who's obviously been the head writer and just one of the best to have ever done it. And he said something along the lines of, misquoting him, but he said like a perfect episode of SNL is like 3 things you love, 2 things that aren't for you. Because it's like, and when if this was someone else's sketch show, it has to be ran through what the guiding ethos of the show is and like who the main characters are, or like what the structure. Whereas this is inherently a bit piecemeal, which lets you try different things and have different voices going in.
Yeah.
So it's like that side of it has just been like sensational. And also like when we first started, we had like because it's owned by Sky and NBC, and which is a big corporations, and they set up a session with us with somebody who does resilience training. And I remember like being sat down, and this is in retrospect very arrogant of me, but I was like, I do not need resilience training. I'm a 15-year veteran of the stage. I've played gigs that are unplayable. Yeah. Anyway, I had one sketch that was read and got like died almost immediately and played to pin drop silence, as Bella says. Bella Hulls calls it pin drop fucking silence. You know, like you sit there 4 minutes of terror, and then after that, I was like, please, can I have some more resilience training, please? Because like it was that's intense. And I found like a few of the performers, because there's like a few of it, like Lorna and Bella, and like there's a few more that, but I think when you're like doing something and it's going badly, and you sort of have an ownership of it, but you also have the power to correct it.
Yes.
You also like, you're like, you start and you're like, oh God, I hated that. And you pivot and you throw the script away and you find the way. This is like 30 seconds in, you're like, oh no. And you can't do anything about it. And you would love to just parachute out and then just be like, don't worry, guys. You can just stop reading it. Let's just get to lunch a bit quicker. But that was at the start of the process. By the end, not that it ever felt nice, but by the end, I had a bit more ownership of like, no, this is what I'm paid to do, and I'm going to own something not going well, which felt like a great lesson to learn.
Yeah.